I guess we are live on the Facebook, I think. Are we live on the Facebook? How's it going, Craig?
It's going pretty well. How about yourself?
I'm still adjusting my circadian rhythm back to the United States from that trip to Australia. That was like my body is just wrecked. I probably said this last week when I got back, but don't travel halfway across the world if you've got a half Ironman in 2 weeks. Just don't do it. So I guess, Corey asked us, do you want to do a quick hit about World Cup broadcasting? And I guess we'll get into that. But I wouldn't call this breaking news because it's kind of out there if you know where to look. So this is interesting. Canterbury, North America has lost their license, or the company that operated Canterbury, North America, 210 Brands, has lost their license. So in theory, USA Rugby actually doesn't have a kit supplier, but they lost their license back in, I want to say March, so roughly like 2 months after USA Rugby signed the contract with them. So all of the fulfillment of merchandise was done by Canterbury Global, which is called Canterbury New Zealand, but it's headquartered in the UK. So, yeah, I guess we have kit through the World Cup, and then after that, it's kind of up in the air. I think they're trying to see if Canterbury wants to actually sign a new deal with Canterbury Global, or if we're gonna have to, buy our stuff.
Yeah. Well, I did like the last picture I saw of the World Cup kit. So, it kind of slowly worked its way through development. It seemed like since the original announcement was made. But I was getting to become a fan of it here towards the end.
It's not horrible. I would say of all of the Canterbury kits, which are basically the same exact kit, I would say ours is probably the best one. To Larry, the Rugby World Cup kit is set. After that, I have no clue, because Canterbury Global does not owe us a thing after the World Cup is over. Heck yeah!
I like how you can see the comments here on the screen now.
That's pretty helpful. Yeah. Well, I did serve as the Team Canada liaison at one point, so I'm wearing some old merch. I have to say I do like this Under Armour training shirt from Canada that they hooked me up with, but I'm just throw back to the old team manager Brian Hunter, my guy, cool dude. But yeah, so that's where we're at with kits. Kind of weird, but it is what it is. However, why we're really here is let's talk about broadcasting options for the World Cup.
Yes, let's talk about. I renewed my pass, the premium pass, just before this, so I'm officially $230 in the hole to NBC Sports. I will have access to the World Cup and all the other features that you get with the premium pass. So you got me, NBC.
It's a lot of stuff, but I was trying to think about this, and people were like, "Oh, Stro, you're just gonna lay down for this." I was like, do you even know? Like, people don't understand, I would say, the broadcasting history of the World Cup. In 2015, I don't remember 2011 at all when it comes to broadcasting history of the World Cup. I don't think it hit linear at all. I don't even think you could. I think it was all like black stuff, really, and maybe some bars had like the premium sports or whatever pay-per-view stuff that you had to pay $10, $20 for a cover charge, but there was really nothing going on that I recollect from 8 years ago. And in 2015, I was on a field exercise, but I did pay for it, and the platform that it was on disappeared pretty fast, which sucks but I think I was just doing all the math. I actually went through my receipts from DirecTV from 2015 because they're all on my email because I'm an idiot and haven't deleted that stuff. But like to get the rugby package that DirecTV had, so everything was like on beIN Sports. You had to pay for the top end sports package and then the add-on on the back end of that. So basically, I spent like an extra $50 a month on rugby, which is crazy. And then the broad, like the whole, do you remember, did you ever buy the over the top platform from Universal Sports?
Me now. Prior to NBC and ESPN picking up the black viewer of international rugby World Cup. I watched.
Yeah, it was
either in the local bar or on some Latvian website that was circulated.
2015. So I would say NBC is doing a horrible job of rolling this out. When you watch an NBC sports broadcast, they're not saying you're home of the Rugby World Cup like they do with the Olympics, because
they're not saying anything. I see is people on Twitter whining about the price. I didn't even know the price was released until I saw the complaints. And I watch a lot of rugby stuff on Twitter, so the fact that NBC didn't put anything in front of me, the whole story is coming from angry fans. That's surprising on NBC's part.
So Larry asked, do any of us remember Setanta Sports? No.
Yes.
I don't. Wow.
I do, Larry.
Oh man, that sounds cancel. Just looking it up. I guess it worked with Ear Sports. The last time it was in the US was 2010. And then it became Fox Soccer Plus or something, is what it looks like. So no, I really don't remember Setanta Sports at all.
So 230 is the full package, which is the World Cup, and then whatever you would normally get for NBC Gold, which is Six Nations, is Premiership. I think there's a couple other internationals in there. If you want just the World Cup, it's $200 for the package.
Yeah,
so that's the price that's out there that people are up in arms about.
For some reason, people are like, I paid $70 in 2015. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Because I found the price. I found like multiple press releases. The OTT platform that Universal Sports, which is like it wasn't a predecessor of NBCSN. It was like an add-on. I would say what Universal Sports is now, it went away, and then they created the Olympic Channel, which was so NBCSN was sort of mainstream, did all the hockey stuff like it does now, and then they had Universal Sports, which had all their weird stuff, like cycling and Tour of California and all that fun stuff. But and so the price in 2015 for the OTT platform that they built and then apparently disappeared really fast was $199.99 for the World Cup. At the time, NBC didn't have other rugby content other than the World Cup. The Premiership was on beIN Sports it was supposed to be on beIN Sports. I can tell you that when I clicked it, it wasn't on beIN Sports. So it was $199 then, and it's $100. So it's $200. It's again $200 this year. So if you do the inflation math, you have a more robust platform that has been in operation for 3 seasons now of Premiership Rugby that I've been a subscriber. So It's pretty robust. Usually, it doesn't really have issues unless your internet has issues. Unlike unlike two American rugby broadcasting over the top platforms, one being the Rugby Channel and one being Flow. And I could say, as a person who has paid Flow money, I can complain all I want because the UI, the user interface, the app, everything, the quality of production is just horrible. When you go into the app and you're trying to watch a game, and during the Super Series specifically, it was like they had two games back to back. The first game was loaded like when it was on, and then the second game wouldn't load until like 20 minutes into the broadcast on the app. And like, how do you spend money on that? Whereas this, I mean, if I rationalize everything, the price, especially if you make it pay-per-view, right, and you're paying for a fight, like I paid. Did you watch the Pacquiao Mayweather fight?
No.
Well, I mean, I did. I think, yeah, it was the same. I think it was the same time I was in the field for. Was it? No, that was the year before. But that card was $100. And I was like, we were in the rear that time, and before I went back, and I just paid for the fight, and I watched I ended up only watching the final fight, and that was like the worst $100 I ever spent. And then the McGregor Mayweather fight was $85 card.
Yeah.
So if we look at it in sort of that like pay-per-view-esque sphere, it's pretty cheap. But the whole rugby package as a whole, the World Cup piece is there, and it stays on your account all year. So you have the games, the World Cup games specifically on demand for the whole year. So that's cool. Then you've got the Premiership, you've got Champions Cup, you've got the Six Nations, and when it comes to the Champions Cup, you've got when they hit pool rounds, I think you get it's either 2 or 3 games in the pool play. For the Champions Cup, you don't get to see the Challenge Cup of pool play, but you do get to see the playoffs in pool play, and you get the playoffs in the Champions Cup, of course. And then in addition to that, like with Six Nations, what NBC is also not marketed at all is they now have the rights to the HSBC 7 series, and they have the rights to both the women and the men's series. So all 18 stops will be broadcast on NBCSN, NBC Sports Gold, and NBCSN. So then you get into linear, and this is where people are kind of mad or something. Well, we are now in this part where I wouldn't say it's mainstream, but this is about as mainstream coverage of an event in a foreign country as you can get. 25 matches will hit NBCSN and NBC. NBC, I think. So last time they only had 9 matches hit NBC and NBCSN. On NBC, only the World Cup. They had 2 on NBC, and only the World Cup final was live. For this, you will have several pool play matches. I think one somewhere in the knockout rounds, and then the World Cup final will also be live. But a total of, when it comes to the number of matches, there's 48 matches total in the World Cup. There will be 25 of 48 matches broadcast on linear via free-to-air or cable, with cable, satellite, whatever you want to call it, on NBCSN and the Peacock. So now, why isn't NBC advertising this? I have no idea. No clue.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, look, I think we have such a warped perspective, I think, because of other broadcasters and the history in the U.S. of broadcast quality and accessibility and price. And I think people are maybe very sensitive to new price points that come out there. And look, $200 is a lot of money. I understand it's a lot of money for a lot of people. I think there are important differences to remember here versus, say, a Flow, or even like a ESPN Plus versus MLR. Like, the World Cup is not a USA Rugby event. it's a World Rugby event. And for World Rugby, USA is an interesting market, a growth opportunity, whatever. It's not their core market, right? So, when World Rugby deals, NBC or to whoever from these other countries, what World Rugby needs to grow the game is access for sure. But what they really need, first priority is the funds that come from these World Cups. I mean, the World Cup is how World Rugby funds itself for the next 3 years. So, when they sell to NBC's goal then is to make a profit for themselves. They're not they have no obligation to the U.S. community. They're not here to develop the game. I mean, they'd probably like that because they own the rights, and obviously they want a more developed fan base. But ultimately, what they need is to make money, and so they're going to charge what it makes sense to charge. Like, this isn't USA Rugby rights for the internationals in the summer, where it's a very tentative thing that we're trying to see if it will work out on TV or not. For their own interests, as they should. And so in the scope of things, I think the best thing we could hope for is that NBC makes a ton of money, having taken over this World Cup in the U.S., so that come next year, more advertisers want to participate and the price goes down. What I don't think you're going to see happen, and I don't think it's fair to expect, is that NBC just gives it away at a lower price than they can charge out of some kind of charitable, altruistic hope to please the rugby community. That NBC is a huge company. I love the rugby community. It's probably not that big of a deal to the NBC executives. So let's take it on ourselves to bring this price down for next World Cup by helping rugby become more popular in these next 4 years.
I think one of the things someone talked about. This is not my idea. Is that rugby people seem to want things for free in the U.S. because we never get it at all. And now that it's there in front of you, you just want it for free. And, well, I think it is incumbent upon those of us with the disposable income is one of the ways to grow rugby in the United States is to spend your damn money. And that is by going to tests. That's by, buying the Premiership Rugby Pass, because if you buy this World Cup Rugby All Access Pass, and you get everything, you get the Premiership, which I watch the Premiership pretty often, and if you get that All Access Pass, and NBC sees that there is a market for rugby in the United States, then maybe NBC negotiates with Major League Rugby for a multi-spectrum streaming and linear deal to then showcase that product rather than sort of having some disparate deals here and there. And it becomes a thing because, NBC has their own bottom line, but they are investing in rugby. They're putting 25 matches on broadcasts. That's a significant risk. Do their advertisers want to invest in rugby? Because their advertisers don't know what the numbers are. The two biggest rugby broadcasts in the United States history are the Six Nations game, where not 2 years ago they put the St. Patrick's Day Ireland versus England match at Twickenham on the Peacock. That game rated lower than the MLR final, which was on CBS. So the two highest rated domestic rugby games in the history of the United States on linear were the USA versus the All Blacks in 2014, which got just over 1 million, and the MLR final this year, which is on CBS, which had just over 500,000. So that's sort of the market you got right now, and they're putting. But
and we don't sit in NBC's boardroom. I don't know exactly what their thought process is, but you could imagine them saying to themselves something like, look, in the US there's a dedicated fan base, very committed, they'll pay any price. There's not a big casual fan base. We don't gain much. If we are charging $200 if we dropped to $50, we'd have to get 4 times as many people to buy at that price to break even. So I could definitely see someone maybe, in the organization saying, look, we could drop it to 50. That wouldn't get us 4 times the number of subscribers. Maybe it'll get us an extra 1 or 2. So like they are investing in it for sure, but they're not investing in it as like a charity thing. They're investing it to make money for themselves.
Oh,
And if dropping the price point is going to make them less money, they're not going to do it. Whether these angry fans, complain or not, if they're buying the tickets at 200 and that's what's optimizing their profit, that's what they're going to go for, and that's what they should go for. They're a private company; they have shareholders and owners, and that's what makes these things all work.
I think part of the probably the best part of the rollout or lack of rollout, I guess, was the introduction. Like they worked with AEG to build a streaming platform for bars so that they could reduce the cost to bars, so that you can go out. Cool. You can go out and do the social part and watch the games at the bars with the NBC Sports Pub Pass. So like the previous rights holder for things like Six Nations forced, like as part of the contract, forced bars to charge $20 a head, probably because their rights fee was expensive for a bar. So they've although the price for us really hasn't changed, the prices for bars to have a willingness to put rugby on is going to be dramatically reduced with this, and especially for the World Cup. I'm guessing the rights fee for a bar compared to what it was in 2015 is like a fraction of what it previously was. So,
and even just the ability. I mean, I think it's hard for bars in the U.S. now to even get channels that show rugby. I mean, if you get the whatever the Premier Sports packages or whatever they call it. I mean, they have to send a rep to like the bars to make sure they're actually collecting the $20 fees. I mean, it's even if you wanted to show rugby and you're willing to pay the cost, it's been difficult. I think this should make it a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's an equitable price. I don't think it was. I spoke to NBC about this. I was like, I don't think it was the price most people were looking for. I think most people were looking for $100 to $150 range, sort of for their total package of like rugby stuff from NBC Gold. But at the end of the day, the price didn't go up. It
has to be a mistake from NBC. I mean, they may look back and say, look, we didn't get looking back, we didn't get the people to pay the $200. It pissed off the community, and I mean they set these prices with their mind in the right place, but there's no guarantee they executed perfectly. They may have misread the temperature of the situation. I guess my point is only that and I think you agree, but my point to you community out there listening to this is we shouldn't expect them to lower the price to grow the game or engage more of the community. Like that's something that we try to do in MLR and USA Rugby. Those are things that we have to worry about. NBC Sports doesn't have to worry about growing the rugby game. They worry about that indirectly, but mostly they're worrying about making money on their rights, which they now own.
Yeah, so I mean, the price didn't go up from the last time they had the rights. So that's an important thing for me, is that the price is the same. What the other important thing for me is that NBC Gold's system is way more robust than what previously existed 4 years ago. So yeah. You're not going to have issues there.
Now look at this. I was looking at this as I purchased my thing today, Aaron. You know what I have noticed, which is interesting, was the pass for the Premiership. Just the regular rugby pass is actually going up in price every year. And it said, it was like $45 a few years ago. Then it was 62.
So
and in the advertisement for this, it said the rugby pass value is 70, which makes me think is going up to 70 this year.
So the first time it was $60, I remember. Then it went up $65 because they added Six Nations. And last year, so in 2018, ESPN had rescinded the rights for the Champions Cup, and somehow it was on Flow Rugby, so no one watched the Champions Cup. And then they added the Champions Cup pool play and playoff rounds last year, and it went up to $70. Well, what did they add this year? They added the HSBC Sevens World Series. and all 18 stops. Previously, ESPN only carried the men's series, and the women's series was streamed via World Rugby social engines. So, I mean, they're with their increase, they're adding more content. So I guess I understand their rationale is like, hey, we're paying out more rights fees, and guess what? Consumer, you got to pay if you want more.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I mean, to wrap that all up, I am sympathetic to people who say it's a lot of money, because it is a lot of money. I agree with Aaron that, there's more content now and the quality is better. This is the best platform that a regular, American fan at home has had access to that I could ever remember for something like this. And, all told, it's, if someone's going to be, sensitive about the price, I mean, it's not NBC's fault. It's not World Rugby's fault. It's just the nature of the market, the way it is right now in this country. And, we all have a stake in improving that as we go forward. But, so let's look to ourselves before we start blaming other entities.
Well, John, seeing your question, no, I'm not paying for Liam's subscription. So, sorry.
Is Aaron paying for Aaron's subscription? We don't know yet. Are you confirmed?
I mean, so I noticed that. So, like, my subscription doesn't renew until the 31st of August. So that's when I will fork over my money. And, and also, if you go to a pub because you're going to save money, quote unquote, you're actually going to spend more money because you're going to buy beer, you're going to buy full English breakfast, and you're going to do that 4 or 5 times. And yeah,
you get the value of company.
It's like value of company. Great. Don't get
go to a pub and get the package, force your friends to watch it,
but
against their will.
In addition, but going to the pub that has a pub pass, you are also supporting commercial growth of rugby, just like you are if you buy the all access pass. Just putting that out there. So that's all I got.
All right. Until next time.